Hello YouTube, this is VG Time back again with another deck profile. This time for Frieza. Red Frieza, typically called Frieza Prison. One of my favorite decks in the game, also the least likely to play at locals, but is a great budget deck for those of you that are looking for a control alternative in the game. So before I get into anything, shout out to my locals at Fire and Dice Games. Hopefully we'll be able to be together again, guys, after this situation is over and we could get some Dragon Ball games in. So starting first, we have the leader. His name is Frieza. He has a permanent that says you can't include battle cards with cost 3 or less in your deck. So that excludes all super combos as well as some utility pieces, which makes you lean a little heavier on extra cards and higher drops to be able to accomplish your goal of winning the game. Then it has an activate main once per turn to look at the top 5 cards of your deck and choose up to 1 red extra card and add it to your hand. So this leader is able to get cards on the front side without giving your opponent cards, which is a key for any kind of control-based leader. Then he has an awakening when you're at 4 or less life to draw 2 cards and you flip this card over, which is also key for a control-type leader to be able to draw cards. Now, on the backside, he becomes Golden Frieza, the Majestic Emperor. He has an activate main once per turn, draw a card. So again, you don't have to give your opponent cards in order for you to gain cards. And then he has an auto that when this leader is being attacked by your opponent's battle card, you could discard 1 red Frieza army battle card from your hand to negate the attack. And then you negate the skill for the rest of the turn. So he has the best version of this effect. There's several other leaders that have similar effects, but usually their effects are negated for the rest of the game. But he's only negated for the turn. So, great leader, great leader. Can't say too much about him. Now, as far as how we are going to win this game, well, they printed a lot of tools for him over the course of this game that allows him to be able to hold his own, even against aggressive strategies. And when you're going against a slower strategy, there's very few leaders that are actually better than him. With the exception being like a Beerus or something like that that has a built-in win con that you can't really do anything about. Zamasu is another one of those leaders that has a built-in win con. But other than those two like extreme cases, you should be able to take most decks. So because you don't have low drops to combo with, the first card that we are going to show you is 3 copies Cabba's Awakening. This card here says is a free extra card, has activate battle, choose one of your red cards, and it gains plus 6k for the duration of the battle. So it allows you to combo out of 5k. You're at 10, your opponent's swing for 15. Usually you will have to use a 10k to combo out of it, but with Cabba's Awakening, you just go Cabba's Awakening is 16. You're good. Then another card to kind of help you out in the early game to defend yourself if need be against very aggressive strategies is 3 copies of Cease to Exist. This card right here is really, really good. It's a part of that cycle along with Artificial Impact and whatnot that allow you to be able to deal with barrier cards. So you have an option for that main deck. It has the ability that you can activate this card, activate battle from your hand without paying its energy cost. And its activate battle is your leader or your extra card, or your battle card, gets plus 5k. And then his activate main is pay 3, choose up to 2 battle cards, ignoring barrier, getting them both minus 25k. That deals with almost everything up until around certain 5-6 drops, certain 7 drops, but mostly it deals with most of the things in the game that has barrier that you have to really worry about. And even if it doesn't, it brings it down real low so you could be able to attack into them and kill them. Then, if you're going to be playing this deck, you have to run a negate suite. So, go over them right now. We have 4 copies of After Image Technique. It's one of the better red counterattacks. Now, this is not actually a negate. It's just simply a counterattack. The difference is that your opponent could still combo off certain cards and things like that. But his effect is that you give your leader plus 40,000, or at least one of your cards plus 40,000, and then a minus 10s one of your opponent's battle cards. So you could get yourself out of a troublesome attack and pick off a little weenie that they could follow up with, or you could have a 50-point attack swing, which your opponent most likely won't try to combo out of. Very rare exceptions. Sometimes they could go against a victory strike matchup. They might still try to go in. Still think it's foolish, but it happens. Then we run 3 of the Frieza Army exclusive paralysis technique. You negate the attack, and if your leader is a red Frieza's Army card, choose all your opponent's battle cards and their leader card, and they get minus 5k. So it's sort of like a reverse Senzu Bean. You activate it, you negate the attack that's coming in, usually of something big. You could pick off weenies, or you could just make the rest of the board so small that they will have to use too many cards to attack you, at which point they may think differently about coming in on you. Then we have 3 copies of one of the better red negates. Is that all you got? Again, an amazing card. It has the effect of negating attack, and if your leader card is red, discard 1 red card from your hand, then choose up to 2 of your opponent's battle cards to give them minus 15k. So it accomplishes quite a bit. Usually it kills most of the early drops in the game, and that don't have barrier, of course. And it also negates attacks. And even if it doesn't kill the early drop, it could drop it down low enough again to make attacking with it a bad proposition. And then this is a new negate I'm trying out, but I think it would be a very good card. Sleepy Boy technique. This card has a lot of positives. A lot of people look at this card for Invoker, and I understand because making this card cost 1 is pretty insane. But even at 3, it's pretty much worth it. In this case, you negate the attack, draw 2 cards, and then choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards and return it to his owner's hand. So you get to actually 4-for-1 with this card because you're negating the attack of 1 card. You can bounce another card and then draw 2 cards off of that. So you're dealing with 4 cards. You're dealing with 4 cards for 1. So it's a 4-for-1. Also, it's a red-blue energy, and this deck is a red-blue deck if I didn't mention it earlier. So it'll be able to be charged if need be, and make sure your colors are correct. Now, going with the theme of defense again, I have 3 copies of Combination Attack. This is one of the most slept-on cards ever because a lot of people see it and they go, oh, it never really does anything for me. Well, it does a whole lot for me. I don't know what they're playing. So this card right here punishes people for going in with battle cards to win the game. So for instance, if they play like so what its effect is you choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards with an energy cost of 5 or less, return it to his owner's hand, then choose one of your red or blue energy and switch it to active mode. So it basically 1 cost bounce a card during combat, which is good enough to make it so that if they go in with combos on anything 5 or less, assuming that doesn't have barrier, you could just bounce it back to their hand, make them waste all those cards in their hand. You still get to untap an energy if you need to follow up with another negate to stop an attack. Then, last card for pure defense, because we are playing red-blue, is 4 copies of Senzu Bean. I think this goes without saying. This card does so much. It makes it so that it makes your opponent have to invest more cards in order to attack into you. It also untaps your energy so that you have the ability to defend yourself better on your opponent's turn. So, completely worth it. One of the best cards in the game. Alright, so next is our card advantage engine. Besides the leader just grabbing you cards, which is, an amazing effect in and of itself, you still need to be able to get cards throughout the course of the game to, especially in the longer, grindier matchups, to bury your opponent in card advantage. So one of those cards is Tyranny Cost. It has an effect of draw 2 cards. Then if your opponent has 11 or more cards in their hand, they choose cards in their hand and shuffle them to their deck until they have 10 cards in hand. So in control mirror matches, it's not too uncommon for both players to be at 12, 13, 14 plus cards in hand. So the Tyranny Cost battle matters. You'll be able to strip some cards away from them while you gain cards. Pretty cool. Another card that a lot of Frieza Prison decks don't really play because they went away from the Frieza lineup at all. But in this deck is very important is New Model Scouter. This card is pretty insane because it searches every battle card in this deck. And it gets up to 2 of them. So what it says is, look at the top 7 cards of your deck, choose up to 2 red Frieza's army cards with energy costs of 4 or more among them, and add them to your hand, then shuffle your deck. So, again, it says it for itself. After you've been churning through your deck with your leader, grabbing extra cards, by the time you play this card, you're able to search the top 7 and usually get the 2 battle cards that you want in the deck. So, again, 1 energy for 2, completely worth it. But then we also have a set of cards that are just meant to make your opponent's life a little uncomfortable. One is the staple for this deck, which is Live to Fight Another Day. Card has the most unique effect in the game. It says if you lead a card as a red Frieza's Army card and your opponent has 3 or more energy, draw 1 card, and for the duration of your opponent's next turn, your opponent can play battle cards with 20k power or less unless they choose 3 cards from their hand and place them in their drop area as an additional cost. So this card right here single-handedly shuts down turns by itself. I don't know too many people who are willing to go, you know what? I'll just throw my hand away. Unless they know they could kill you. Like, let's say they had the nuts opening 2 turns. And then you play this card and you hope to God that they can't kill you. But their board is just too great. Which, if that's the case, you shouldn't even be playing this card out anyway. But there's very rare windows where this card is actually bad. So it adds an additional cost. So in order for them to even attempt to play the card, they have to pay 3. Now, one thing I found out recently is that this does not work against cards that they might combo or rival on your turn. So when you play this card, you don't want to attack with your leader or anything like that. Because if they combo in a Raider's War Cry or they arrival into like a cooler or something, it doesn't trigger this card's effect, and you just gave them a free card. And then last of the just make them life uncomfortable effect is 2 Denial of Hope. I know a lot of people are like, why only 2? Well, 1, deck space is tight, but 2 is that Denial is one of those cards that is, it's not even an argument. It's a very powerful card. A lot of the times, I don't want it when I see it, when I have it at 4. I know that might sound strange, but like, you have it in your hand, and you're waiting for a denial target, and it just never happens. And it's because certain matchups just doesn't present itself to need denial to stop them. So you run it at 2, you play another 2 on the side deck, and then that allows you to be able to swap them in and out accordingly for the matchup. Effect is it's a counterplay. If they play a card with 20k power or less, it goes to their drop area instead. All right, so mentioned earlier with the New Model Scouter, it searches every battle card in its deck, so let's go over the battle cards now. We have 4 Loyal Kakono. Loyal Kakono is an absolute Chad. You can see him right there. You see the sexiness of his face. Who could ever resist that guy? But Kakono, he has an effect that when you play him or you combo with him, you could choose a red extra card in your drop area and return it to your hand. So it allows you to recycle the cards that you were using throughout the course of the game, like Live the Fight or Tyranny's Cost or even the Gates and Denial of Hope, to be able to use them multiple times to get value out of them. It's also Red Frieza's army, so if your leader's on the backside, discard them if you really don't need them at that point and negate an attack. Then we have one of my new favorite additions from set 9, Frieza No Introduction. Now, was playing Topo in its slot, and Topo is a strictly superior card in almost every way in any deck that's not this deck. In this deck, this card is way better. As a counter attack, during your opponent's turn, you reduce the cost of this card by 2. So, you negate an attack, you play him into play. Then he has activate main, a double red and a blue. You choose one red or blue Frieza's card from your hand with an energy cost of 5 and play it on top of this card. So, just pretty nuts. And the targets for him are also insane. 3 copies of Full Power Frieza 100% Overdrive. Don't know what they were thinking when they printed this card. This card is stones. 30k 5-drop with triple strike. Even if you hard cast it, completely worth it. But usually you're just going to evolve them with the activate main from this card effect. He has an effect auto that when he attacks, you choose all your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier, and they get minus 30k power for the duration of the turn. So it kills everything but ultimates in this game. And when you combine it with a card that we showed you earlier in this game, Cease to Exist, you could kill literally everything in this game. There's nothing that can actually stand up to it. And Minus Scene also gets around things like Indestructible as well. Then he has another auto that when an opponent's battle card gets minus, they mill 2 cards. And this is not a once per turn auto. So they have a full field, you swing with this guy, and you minus 30 their field. They mill 2 cards for each of those guys that they had on the table. So this guy, besides just being a good attacker, is a win condition in and of himself by just milling your opponent out. I have won several games just by doing that by itself. They've set up a whole bunch of little weenies and blockers and stuff, and then you just go swing with this guy, mill like 20. Okay, at that point, what are they doing? And at that time, I wasn't even attacking their leader. Just swing, mill 20. Great. The other target, when you need something a little more immediate, because this card, as great as it is, if you're going against a yellow matchup, is susceptible to being hit by Crusher Ball and things like that. If you have 10 red extra cards in your drop area, you get to play 2 Frieza the Finisher, or you get to evolve Frieza the Finisher on top of the 4-drop, because his costs get reduced to 5 while it's in your hand. His effect is if you have 5 or more extra cards, you reduce his cards cost by 1. If you have 10 or more, you reduce it by an additional 1. So he becomes a 5-drop with 10 extra cards in the drop area. And when you play him, you choose, and if your leader card is a red Frieza's army, you choose all battle cards with 25k power or less other than this card, ignoring barrier, and KO them. So, again, it moves anything regardless of whether or not it has barrier, but it gives you hard removal in the matchups where you might not be able to get this guy off because you see they're playing like yellow-blue, so a Crusher Ball or Frost Deadly Poison is an option. Then the last 2 cards I play, one is Golden Frieza Indomitable Emperor. He has an EX Evolve where you could choose 3 cards from your hand, place them in the drop area, and you go EX Evolve them on a red Frieza BR card when their energy cost is 7. Pretty nuts. Pretty nuts. It allows you to Um, it allows you to go from the 7 into him pretty quickly, and that then puts his permanent into play, which is that if your leader card is Red Frieza's army, Red Frieza's army leader, you and your opponent can't play battle cards with 30k power or less unless they choose 4 cards in their life and place it in the drop area as they play the battle card. So that locks them out of everything again, except for certain 35k guys and ultimates. He has critical, so that means that you're not giving him cards. And then also when he evolves onto a card, he restands that card. So pretty nuts. And last but not least, and sorry for the proxy, because one of my friends borrowed a card from me for his deck, and then this whole situation happened. So I haven't been able to get in contact with him to get the card back. But this is Frieza's Army Reborn, which is the ultimate for red Frieza decks, or for red decks in general. Has an effect that if your life is at 2 or less, it usually is 8 with 5 red specified costs. If your leader card is at 2 life, you could just play it for 5, which will be 5 specified red. Also, because it's a Frieza card, if you're at 2 life and you happen to have this guy on the table, you could also evolve it for double red and the blue on top of him. Doesn't come up often, but it's pretty nuts that you could do that. His effect is when he comes into play, you blow up all battle cards on the opponent's side and fill ignoring barrier, and then you look at their hand and choose a card from it and put it into the drop area. He swings, he's 40k quad strike, so usually you could just end off a game like that. And he's the only battle card in the deck that you could play while under the influence of this Frieza that allows you to not take the 4 life. So hopefully when we be able to go back to our normal lives, if that's possible, I'll have some gameplay footage of these decks that I've been posting. And hopefully you enjoyed it and have a nice day.